semblance. Check the emblem, it's a penguin, not a gremlin. Just letting you know you're on an infinite plane, it's never bending. We strike like temping, killing all fears and breaking the tension. Gotta know the hopes on me, digging deep in the trenches. Come and join in, be adventurous. Quit being so sensitive, forget the censorship. We ain't telling fibs. Messing with the penguin. We're messing with the penguin. 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 Fucking with the penguins, yeah.
Okay, everyone, thank you for joining us here. I'll put a link to these opening tracks in the chat. Thank you for joining. The title of this live stream is, I believe it's Metascript Analysis 8/13/2020, Infinite Plane Radio. So by Metascript, I talk about this overarching story or script that seems to tie everything together, whether it be politics or entertainment, PSYOP, industrial complex. We're talking about the area where all of these things merge. If you missed anything, you can go to infiniteplanesociety.com. Everything will be archived there. And also, you can subscribe to the archives via Patreon, in case YouTube takes anything down or wherever you're listening from. Because nothing's certain except that the archives will exist on my site. Even if I have to do backflips to replace videos that are taken down, no big deal. We have redundancies. Anyway, I want to talk about the Metascript. And so we've been discussing for some time here about how 2020 has been playing out like 1968. And by 1968, what I mean is the political elite, the storytellers in high places, have framed this as 1968. And we've discussed at length what these associations mean and how history, it doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And we've been examining all of the interesting patterns. And what ties these patterns together, strangely or not, is the astrology, things we can't change. You can change your calendars, you can mess with the dates, you can lie in the news, whatever, but you can't change the time and date of the celestial alignments. And the things that we're talking about, the big mainstream world events, major world-changing events, are astrologically timed. So there are some significant callbacks to 1968 that reference 2020. There's some intersections between the script that went into the assassination of MLK and how certain things are being played out right now. Because 68 was a year of political violence. And I've been talking about how Colin Kaepernick figures prominently in this drama for a few reasons. Namely, I mean, he starts out his story, in my mind, I mean, in this narrative would start with the Super Bowl 47, blackout 33 minutes, he's the quarterback. Anyway, he emerges on the world stage as this civil rights activist with the kneeling, which started 3 years and 11 months ago. So that's how long they've been doing this, 3 years, 11 months. The anniversary will be tomorrow of when that thing started. So I think that makes it 4 years. But my point is, I'm looking at this as a character on the world stage going through a certain series of, PR stunts, more or less, to tell a story. It's a mythic journey, a hero's journey. And just recently, some footage came out, which many saw a couple years ago, but it had somewhat been buried. And it was some type of training environment for, I guess, Navy Special Forces or something. They're training with their attack dogs. And they have their attack dogs sicked on a guy wearing a Colin Kaepernick number 7 jersey, which, another callback to 1968, attack dogs hitting civil rights leaders. So a number of things have, brought that year into hyper-focus. But there are a few other ones that we're also looking at very closely. And first off, just to justify my statement about everything being timed according to celestial alignments, it is an objective fact that the 8 minutes and 46 seconds not only correlates to the timing of 9/11, 8:46 a.m. when the Twin Tower is hit, but the 8:46 does also correlate to the time that the sun set, May 25th, 2020, where he died. And of course, the setting of the sun symbolizes the victory of the Prince of Darkness over the sun god. It's when the challenger gets destroyed. And it's just a ritual of death and rebirth and recycling that, it started with the ancient sun cults, but it's based on observations of the sun and personifications of it or him, and his tragic journey, constantly fighting the darkness and dying, going through tribulations in the underworld and coming back again. So this is, these are just observable facts. So the 846 is a ritualistic symbol. It has nothing to do with, the planes didn't really hit at 846. It's all ritual. So I've been analyzing this stuff in depth, and I've come across quite a lot. And I'm working on something, I'm calling it Coincidence Theory 113. Because we're talking about a period of time, this script, which my starting point is November the 3rd, 1906. The ending point for this particular script, November the 3rd, 2020. A 113-year period. And there are so many interesting correlations between 68 and 9/11. Between 9/11 and what's happening now in 2020. And just today, a few more things have just kind of jumped out at me. Like, for example, and this is the new material, so I don't want to rehash everything we've already been through. Those of you in Discord know we've been going through a mind map, which I'm going to publish very soon. It's pretty exhaustive, but it's coherent, and I'm showing you what I believe is the case for mankind being in the grip of a colossal global conspiracy, whatever you want to call it. But it's there. There is a conspiracy. Conspiracy theorists have been vanity. They're not even theorists anymore. We're just conspiracy observers. We're just kind of, it's like, we're conspiracy analysts, I guess you could say. But let me go back into some of the new material that has come up since. So Derek Chauvin, let me go one step back. George Floyd, I've watched the new videos, not convinced it's not an act. I'm just not. It's going to take more. Because look, if they don't arrest, and I said this right after Nipsey Hussle's fake death, if they don't charge the paramedics with malfeasance, with murder, then they're actors. And the only thing they're guilty of is not really being studied up enough on the role that they were going to play. But I wanted to point out that the left leg is rolled up on Floyd, and it was the same exact scene with Nipsey Hussle, and the reason why, of course, is the one leg up represents the initiation, the humiliation of the initiate. It's a sun god thing. Like they humiliated Jesus. They ripped the clothes off. It's all part of this sun cult, ritual humiliation, highly symbolic. And, one of the things we're going to talk about today is gangs being controlled by the police. Like, is there a difference? I had a conversation with a Mason out of Chicago who told me, point blank, he said that, we're the biggest gang in the world. We got 5 million members, like bragging about it being a gang. But funnily enough, you can find a lot of correlations between gang initiations, gang culture, gang things like rolling the pant leg up and stuff that you see within the Masonic cults. And this gets really interesting because I've been talking about how the 1312 is kind of peculiar to me. You have BLM marching around spray painting 1312 on everything, it's a code for ACAB, all cops are bastards. So I'm like, wait, 1312, it's a code, a cipher, obviously. And this is how the Masons speak. They speak in codes. You have to know what it means. You have to decode it. A little bit of, Kabbalah, Gematria 101, whatever. Well, it turns out 1312 is the year that the Templars went underground. They were burned at the stake. So there's this phoenix symbolism, but 1312 symbolizes them going under. Then they emerge, other side of the phoenix story, as the Freemasons in 1717. Now, I don't necessarily believe the conventional view of history or if any of these things really happened, but that's the official script. So for the anti-cops to be chanting ACA, all cops are bastards, and spray painting 1312, to me it just shows that there's a hidden hand guiding it, controlled opposition extremely deep within. And I think it's the same with the gangs. And I just came across this 1312 correlation, and so check this out. It has to do with Kamala Harris, and this is an article from 5 years ago. Aide to California state attorney accused of running an occult police force, claiming to be 3,000 years old. Police chiefs have received a letter that announced a new leadership for the group. And so here's a couple of pull quotes from this piece. Very strange article from a few years ago. But I was talking about this because it has come out in the last few days that there have been a number of settlements from wrongdoings on behalf of gangs within the sheriff's department in Los Angeles. So it says, suspicions about the Masonic Fraternal Police Department, whose members trace their origins to the Knights Templar, were aroused when various police chiefs in Southern California received a letter in late January. Anyway, you look here, and what you have is a reference here that the Masonic Police Department, just like the Masons, they reference that their origin is the Knights Templar, which again, 1312 is a very significant year. You know, that's the year that they were forced to go into secrecy and to start speaking in code. And, you know, that's, and now here we go. Here's some other headlines related to this. LA cops crack down on bizarre Illuminati-loving club of alleged police. And this is all under the watch of Kamala Harris, AG. So-called, quote, chief of LA's weird Masonic police died on Monday. Here's a bizarre one. Chief of 3,000-year-old Illuminati police dies after court appearance. Sudden death. Now, I don't know what to make of all of this, but here's a little bit more from it, actually. It says here, a website claims that their forces connect to the Knights Templar. They go back 3,000 years, and that the department has jurisdiction in 33 states and in Mexico. So that's curious. But anyway, I think it kind of underscores what I'm talking about when I'm saying that it looks like this is controlled opposition when you see the BLM throwing up the hands up, don't shoot. You see them doing the kneeling in 1312. These are all Masonic codes. So now let's move on to the next part. There's more stuff within the Metascript that has come up recently. So here's one. Flu vaccine turns 75 in 2020. So this is kind of curious because we just celebrated another 75th anniversary, and that would be Hiroshima. So what's the correlation here? A flu vaccine, Hiroshima. So dates are important. We're talking 75 years ago. And then something else came up yesterday, and it had to do with Putin talking about how we led the way in the space race. Now we're going to lead the way with vaccinating and saving the world. So here's something. This is really intriguing in that context. So if you look at Sputnik, this is the symbol of Sputnik. I mean, this is the satellite that they supposedly sent out into space, the magic place where everything floats and it stays in place exactly where you put it, unless it gets acted upon by something else, but nothing will because it's empty space and it's magic. Anyway, it looks like a big COVID. It was pointed out to me by someone over in Discord. It's like, it looks like a damn COVID. I'm like, wait a minute. This is very, very, very curious here because Sputnik, of course, is the operation that kicked off the space race. And so here's another space race reference. We're repeating the 60s rather, all over again in certain respects. So this correlation may be significant here. And I'm going to show you a couple of other things. So Russia unveils a new vaccine. And I talked about this. But you know what their vaccine's called? Their new vaccine is called Sputnik 5. So I'm like, okay, wait. They actually named their vaccine Sputnik 5, claiming a breakthrough in the global vaccine race. So this is what I mean by metascripting here. So anyway, the COVID looking like it does, very curious. And I've been saying for some time that the COVID-19 looks exactly like a globe covered in nuclear detonations. And someone sent me a tweet this morning of all the various mushroom clouds that we see all over right now. Now, they're not, quote, nukes, but they look very nukish. You got these mushroom clouds, very conspicuous, different causes. Apparently they're not connected, but they're connected by one thing, which I mentioned earlier, timing. You know, what are the odds that, you know, Beirut timed with this Hiroshima thing? It's the timing that's so curious to me. The timing of the vaccines, 75th anniversary. So that's what I'm looking at here. A couple of other things. So the vaccine named Sputnik 5 is a reference to the first orbital satellite, which was launched in 1957. So 57, I'm taking note of because I'm seeing a lot of interesting things with the numbers where they reverse things. 75 and 57. And I thought about this because you had that exchange in Buffalo where the old man, the crisis actor, was shoved and he hit his head. He was 75, and then 57 of the officers quit or whatever. So I'm like, okay, well, there's something here with this 5775, whatever code that they're speaking in, and they speak in code because they're a secret society. Anyway, so Sputnik set off the global space race, and this is from the same article. The name also evokes how Putin's government has seen the vaccine race as a point of national pride and competition on a global scale. So and then here's something else that was brought up. Kennedy assassination was 57 years ago, which may be curious, again, and I have a few reasons for thinking so without getting too deep into the weeds here, but, looking at this as a protracted drama, a lot of stuff really does stand out, but I'm going to get back to that in a minute. So the 75th anniversary of Hiroshima, the 75th anniversary of the flu vaccine, very curious thing there. We have the 1312, another call out from within, and then I find vindication here, strangely enough, implicating Kamala Harris in covering up some Masonic cult within the police departments, which would explain a whole lot. Damn, Josh said, I brought up the Masonic hailing sign of distress, hands up, don't shoot correspondence to a Shriner, and he exclaimed it was dead on. Well, that's when I saw that, and I'm like, okay, this is a controlled op from the get-go. From the very get-go, it's a controlled opposition, and I thought they're just flaunting it with that. The kneeling comes later, and again, we're in the 3rd year, 11th month of this kneeling thing. Okay, I have a couple of other things I want to bring up here. So we're talking about how this is a meta script. How this is a bigger story and everything connects, that the time that Chauvin kneeled on George's neck, 8:46, corresponds to the time that the sun set that day, 8:46. Death of the sun god in this myth, 8:46, the time that the first plane hit the first of the twin towers. A lot of twin symbolism. So Derek Chauvin kicked off this new 9/11 event. That's what we're talking about. An emergency, a state of emergency, a crisis. So this is curious here. Turns out that, and we saw this come in last year when Court TV was like making an emergence. I'm like, Court TV may actually show this, but George Floyd case, the next court date, September 11th. So I'm like, wait, the next hearing is 9 a.m. on September the 11th with State versus Derek Chauvin. So is that some type of a joke? Another 9/11 correlation? Jai Christopher says, huge mushroom clouds north of LA because of fires. Exactly. When I saw the COVID-19 emblem, or we'll call it icon, or idol rather, when we saw the COVID-19 idol, the devil god of the communist left, COVID-19, my first impression, it looks like the planet Earth, if you believe it's a planet, covered in gray smoke and peppered in nukes, and they're all communist red. So I'm like, either Chinese or the Russians are going to nuke us everywhere in the world and completely subdue the world. But instead of actually nuking us, they're doing it with this COVID-19, where ground zero was predicted to be in Seattle, and it was predicted to be a nuke by all the predictive programming that we were analyzing. And it turns out ground zero was in Seattle, declared on 3/11. Patient zero, comes up with, like, I think it was one. No, well, for this, in this state, in this country, first patient came down in Seattle on 119, which is 9/11 reversed. Very curious stuff. But when I saw this thing emerging from Seattle, I thought, instead of using real nukes, they're using something that can accomplish the same thing without all of the destruction, without all the fireworks. And this would be it, a pandemic. So I find this to be really interesting because we have been, as as a species, the human race, all over the world, we've all been conquered by this invisible threat, this invisible enemy that did what they said that the nukes were going to do. So I thought this is a symbol of nuclear domination moving us into a communist world order. That's kind of how I took this symbol when I first saw it. And I think I'm right, for one thing. But for another, man, I'm going through some comments here. A couple of other things I have to read back. I'm not going to skip into stuff someone brought up here. So what I'm suggesting here, though, is that it's very curious that the Sputnik vaccine is going to cure the world right now of this thing. That's very curious for one thing, because ultimately it's about moving us under this communist system. It's all subterfuge. But I find that interesting that they're bringing out this cure from, of all places, Russia. And 75 years ago is when the flu vaccine came out. 75 years ago is when Hiroshima happened. So we have this Hiroshima connection with these clouds to this pandemic today. And now we have Russia. And I had assumed that those were going to be Russian nukes all over the place. So I'm not quite sure what this all means. I guess it depends on what Putin put in that vaccine batch. But anyway, very, very strange, interesting correlation and connection here. And then George Floyd's next court date being on 9/11. Like, that's just too much. Like, that's just too obvious. It's like, okay, we get it. It's a damn movie. It's a propaganda film that never ends. So when comment here says that there's a mushroom cloud north of LA, I'm saying, here's what I'm thinking. Because this obviously goes back decades in its planning. We're talking about the space race being reignited. And this is all really fascinating because to me, the space race is actually code for moving us into a totally controlled society. And the space age, the vaccine, all symbolic, of the livestock being moved transitioned into this new age, which we're already seeing how fast it's going. Very little resistance, very little you can do when a 311 phone call can shut down your business. I think they shut down that gym. You can't even operate a legitimate business anymore. I mean, it's getting insane. I heard that Uber may even turn them from independent contractors into employees. Okay, I'm going through comments. Someone says here, oh yes, so Derek Chauvin was a cop for 19 years, very significant. Jordan says the COVID Twin Towers connection has been established, and you add Chauvin's court date 9/11, now they're not hiding it. Exactly. Tie that in. There's a few other tie-ins here, but what I'm saying, the one thing that proves that we're not looking at selective observation or conspiracy theory is that this is aligned with the calendar, celestial events, specifically solstices, equinoxes, but there are also events that happen. Like here's one that figures really prominently is the blackouts of 7/13, 1977, 2019, and the curious case of the two individuals, the second one 33 years old, setting themselves on fire in front of the White House 33 years apart, to be followed the next year, spaced 33 years apart, by two market crashes called Black Monday. Like, there are some patterns here. It's almost like, well, Mark Twain said it jokingly, that history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. But no, I think that they dust off old playbooks. This is a meme here. Where are you on the COVID spectrum? 1, wearing a mask while driving. 10, researching the Illuminati. People really are that polarized on it. They either think it's a communist, or they either know it's a communist takeover and they're defacing you, or they believe it's real and it's needed and you're virtuous for having it. And everybody who wears a mask and believes in it knows somebody that knows someone who died. Like, actually, there's never been a more effective sheep detector than the mask. And you can just tell. It's kind of sad, but not really. It's a time saver. Koopstar says, I was going to take the vaccine, but I heard they were... This is the thing about the vax that I think is fascinating. You got the left and the right so polarized that the left wing says vax will save the world, hydroxychloroquine will kill everybody. The right says hydroxychloroquine will save everybody. Vax will kill everybody. So they're completely diametrically opposed. And now a right-wing hero like Putin comes out with a vax, not a shot of bleach, not a Tide Pod, but with a vax. It's like, wait a minute. Is he now the next Bill Gates, or do you trust his vax? I'm going to open up phones later. I have a few more things I have to get through with this Metascript analysis. Quite a lot going on. Someone sent me this link. I want to go through this in depth later about the Masonic symbolism intrinsic within the whole Super Mario Brothers story. It's kind of funny. I was talking about Henry Makow recently, and he describes this culture that we're in as having been hijacked by the cryptopsy, and it's all what he called a Judeo-Masonic culture or something. But anyway, the more I look into it, the more I look at this stuff objectively, it's like, well, where does all this stuff come from? It's all getting to be very clear to me now. Want to mention this too. So the other day when Trump was making a statement about having lots of enemies possibly disappearing, we were saying this ties into a big part of the script. And when he said, I have lots of enemies out there, this may be the last time you see me for a while, on the cryon below it said, blackout, brace yourself. And that night you had blackouts in New York, Manhattan, Harlem. Very, very curious. Because what I see here, and this is what I mean by metascript analysis, we're not looking at any event as isolated, but every event takes place within a broader context. Nothing is random. There are no coincidences. I'm working on something now called Coincidence Theory 113, because I think I can show that it's a theory that these things are coincidences if it's coming from MSM-controlled sources. There's a lot of leeway for randomness, sure, but there are distinct parameters. There are, I mean, this is how they came up with the whole concept of borderline content. TOS guidelines in order to censor certain ideas. It's because, yeah, they in fact do have a metascript, and we're not on it. And metascript analysis has always been derided or misunderstood. And, it's really easy to say, well, look, there's going to be, or this is all evidence of, it's just synchronicity, or it's God or divine order revealing itself, glitches in the matrix. And I'm saying, no, I don't think it's glitches in the matrix. I think it's actually deciphering their language, and it's not hard to do. I mean, we're talking about the 1312, the code within these Masonic police fraternities. It's like, yeah, it's pretty obvious actually. Ethan says Putin's a right-wing savior of the white race. I trust his vax. Steve says, see, this is what I'm saying. It's so weirdly polarized. It's funny how CNN is now questioning vax safety just because it's Russian. Exactly. It comes from Bill Gates, and the left wing are like junkies for it. Seriously, they'll steal your stereo. They'll loot your house, if they have to come up with whatever they have to come up with to get that vax once it becomes available. They'll go after the black market vax. They're junkies for it, and now all of a sudden it's coming from Putin. Like if Trump had vax, like a Trump vax, they wouldn't want it. It's the weirdest thing. And that makes me think it's not real. It makes me think that there's no real threat here, that it's all just sacrament. I don't really think there's anything in it. And Bill Gates recently, I think today even, or yesterday, was questioned about this. He's like, they were asking him, what do you think about all these conspiracy theories that are suggesting that you want to, kill everybody in the world? His answer wasn't all that good either. His answer was pretty vague. He was like, basically they're saying that I'm getting paid to kill the world instead of save the world. And that was kind of it. Okay, now check this out. A couple more strange things. I've been digging into, like I said, the script. A couple weird things here. Governor Cuomo was presenting this bizarre chart. They called it COVID Mountain. And I don't know if you saw it, but COVID Mountain was this chart where it had people climbing up a mountain. On the way up there, you have the sun, the moon, the rainbow, And I saw that and I'm like, that's the most Masony poster I've seen in my entire life. And the closer I look at it, the more I realize it really does contain all the right, proper iconography. Then I compare it to the actual, quote, steps of Freemasonry. And this is a very common thing out of the Masonic cults, where they'll have these mountain diagrams that show the way up. You know, and so COVID Mountain, it just looks very Masonic. Very bizarre thing. And I still haven't come up with an explanation for this, but this is Governor Cuomo's COVID Mountain, where he's got this big mountain. I'm not sure what it's made out of. It's in this room downstairs, and it's got a 42 on top of it. And he goes down there and he talks about beating down COVID Mountain. Strange stuff. Main thing I want to point out was his thing is very Masonic, his chart. I have a number of articles I want to go through as well, having to do with the symbolism of the Joker, where he came from. And if you didn't know, Batman's great-grandfather founded the Skull and Bones Society. And Batman's a real character. You may think it's a movie character, but then again, you think your pundits on the news are actually not just actors, pretending to be pundits on the news. Like, they're all real in the same sense. They're all world stage characters. Steve says Sputnik means a satellite. Very, very creative. Okay. Luke Skywalker, glad you could join us here. Is it Luke, I'm your father, or no, I'm your father? He says, did you stream all night? Hey, it's a 24/7 stream. If you look at the screen, it says on air or replay, depending on which. And as time progresses, it's going to be more and more live. So yeah, so Putin has named his new vax Sputnik. And this is all just a callback to the space race, like so many other things. You know, last night we were talking about Spike Lee's movie called The Blood Five, and it has certain callbacks to 1968. They reference 68. It's about events of 68, but it's more modern. And one of the main characters is BLM. Another guy who throws a grenade has a MAGA hat. And the cover's got, you know, 5 gentlemen kneeling. You know, it's pretty much, it looks like a BLM George Floyd memorial poster, but it's the cover for a movie that came out before George was killed. So, you know, go figure. Then his other movie, of course, talking Spike Lee, Summer of Sam, about the son of Sam, and about the blackouts that happened on 7/13 and then repeated on 7/19, weirdly enough. He was the director of that one, which also has a lot of significance for 2020 and what I think happens next. And of course, blackouts to the day, 42 years apart, on that day, July 13th, which is a very, very important date, like 9/11 and 3/11. And some of the stuff that I've been, you know, pulling up out of the Metascript, I have to point out, just because there are those who will say, well, you're just pointing out things that are just random and you're ascribing meaning to them. Well, explain to me how there are exactly 911 days between 9/11/2001 and 3/11/2004, the Madrid attacks. You know, there's coincidence and then there's happenstance, but we're looking at deliberate action here. Commenter says Russian preliminary vax will be suppositories. That would not surprise me. If you ever heard about what they did to poor Lance Bass, the NSYNC character, apparently he was going to go into space and they humiliated him with the I don't know, the pre-flight medical checks, where they kind of did what you described. Ethan says, I'm on a regular regimen of hydroxychloroquine suppositories. I just snort the stuff. And I wake up every day, take my Vax, snort a line of hydro. Okay, listen to this. Psychologists are pushing to classify individuals resisting coronavirus edicts as mentally ill. They said the same thing about global warming. You know, this is such garbage. It's like, if you don't vote for me, you're mentally ill. You know, this is how they call this science. This is all psychobabble. It says early in the pandemic, And in subsequent months, there were numerous reports of individuals purposefully coughing, spitting, licking door handles to rebel against the new norms of social distancing and hygiene. These are dark triad psychopathy-related traits. So basically, they're trying to suggest that the people going against the grain are, disgusting deviants who lick doorknobs. Those stories were all fake. Do you remember those stories? It'd be worth going back and deconstructing those. Stories like, oh, this Instagram model decided to lick a toilet seat and now she's got COVID and she's dead. Like, those were all fake. And I'm saying this is all fake. And they're saying here that if you got the dark triad in you, which is narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, that you're more likely to go against the grain. And the truth couldn't be, it couldn't be more further from the truth here. They're wrong 100%. It's like, wait, you're trying to suggest the people who go against these norms are narcissists and psychopaths and Machiavellian? The whole mask everybody up under the false pretext of a pandemic is by definition Machiavellianism and psychopathic. I would say that the people wearing the mask are either useful stooges or they're dark triad. You've got to be a dark triad to go full Karen on somebody for not wearing a mask in public. Unless you're, again, a stooge and you believe it. But there's a point where it almost doesn't make a difference because you got the dark triad Machiavellian types at the top who program the sheeple. And most Karens are just sheeple. They're just kind of like the enforcers. Balls Deepfaker says, has anyone seen the video of these doctors getting the COVID-19 vaccine, but when the camera zooms in, the needle has the cap on? I have seen that. I have. And yeah, it's definitely fake. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. A couple other things I want to go over. Again, 75th anniversary of the flu vax, 75th anniversary of the nuke, Hiroshima. And also, I've been looking into this whole thing from various angles, how this script is revealed in popular entertainment, how it's in the news, it's in the history books, how it's told, more or less, in the celestial realm. Because they do, in fact, personify the sun, the moon. It's a religion, ultimately. The mass-mediated worldview is the NWO religion. That is a very important point. So one of the characters in the story is Mercury, which I find to be very curious. Mercury, closest to the sun, messenger, torchbearer, 88-day orbit, personified as the Joker, also a god of medicine. So I've correlated the medical mask to the Joker mask and the Joker archetype burning down the system. And I can find many examples of things astronomically that correlate to this and to these characters being presented to us on the world stage. Like the 11/11 Mercury Sun transit, right there after the Joker movie starts making its rounds. And this is when we started predicting that this was going to bring about chaos with basically the purge on the streets. Months and months ago. And we're just getting this off of reading what they are presenting. But I'm also looking at Mercury and its relationship to the whole vax. There is some correlation there. I'm just trying to see how it connects. But this thing I'm going to be publishing here, I'm going to be probably presenting it here live. It'll take 3 or 4 hours. Coincidence Theory 113. What I've come up with here is what I think is a big script that has to do with the transition into a new age and how they burn down the present age, which we're starting to see it now. But basically, I'm suggesting that this COVID-19 thing could easily have been planned 100 years ago. And I think we can prove it in a number of ways, specifically with the way that these various transformative events are integrated, not just connected by things that look the same or numbers that align, but we're talking about their integrated storylines, and they all take place in the same fictional universe. And that's another point to make too. The world church being the mass-mediated worldview, that worldview is a fictional universe. And so if you look into like any kind of popular fiction where it's a genre like Star Trek or Marvel Universe, you have like a universe where there's a set of rules and a set of things that happen in a certain way. And authors who contribute have a bit of leeway, but they have to obey those parameters for the universe to remain integrated and coherent. So there's no contradictions. And so, yeah, I kind of think here that this meta-scripted view is very coherent, and anything that contradicts it, they just label as hate speech or misinformation. So anyway, Coincidence Theory 113, I will be publishing this soon. I have a few predictions. I wanted to draw attention to a couple of things. Like, I don't like doing a lot of, I'm not into numerology. I'm not into symbolism. But I know a few people who really are experts in this topic who might be able to shed some light on it. So in fact, let me go ahead and see. I was going to call Jordan Maxwell. He called me yesterday. I got to call him back. Let's see what he has to say.
Hello.
Hey, Jordan, what's up? You hear me okay? Hold on one second here. I might have to adjust the speaker. Microphone line in.
I can hear you fine.
Oh, you
I can
can?
hear you all right.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure you could hear me all right. Okay, so, hey, Jordan, I'm live here, Infinite Plane Radio, and
Yeah.
we're having a conversation about numerology, and specifically numbers like 33, 19, and events that happen, on dates that seem to correspond with celestial alignments.
Yeah, with those numbers.
So, for example, one thing that recently came to my attention is that there was a blackout July 13th, 1977. Well, July 13th, 2019, there was a blackout in the same area, same place, to the day, 42 years later, and it was on 42nd Street onward, and it put 42,000 in the dark. So what does that say to you?
Well, I remember reading a long time ago a guy who was working for the government, and he said, I carry around a computer with this massive computer I have, and I carry it around with all the important dates to government. And I'm the one that's coordinating all the dates for the government and times for things to happen, he said. And so I know that there's a coordination between government and dates, because he said he is keeping track of all the dates and times when things are supposed to happen. I just thought that was interesting.
Okay, well, check this out. So, George Floyd was kneeled upon for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, and he dies. The first of the Twin Towers was hit at 8:46, and that was enough, I thought, to suggest some encoding here. But then I find out that the sun set in Minneapolis on that day at 8:46 p.m. So what do you make of the sun setting at that time on that day?
Well, I am totally convinced that we are being led by extraterrestrial knowledge. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Somebody is from somewhere else is controlling our life and our destiny. And there's nothing we can do about that, because it's a demonic and dark, deep secret that's been kept from the human race for a long time. So I think there's a higher intelligence on the earth that's also guiding our destiny, and they are far, far superior to our intelligence. We may have a lot of interesting technology, but they are far superior to all of us. And that's what I believe. I'm totally convinced that that is true, that we are being led by some sort of an otherworld intelligence right now.
Okay, well, when you say extraterrestrial, do you think it's underground, another dimension? I mean, how does this work? Like, are they physical beings, or are they beings that, enter through people, like possession? Where would you actually place these entities, and what would you say that they are?
That's a very good question because I've thought about that quite a bit. I think there are just other dimensional beings that have been here for a long time and they are intervening right now in our evolution on the earth. The things which are happening on the earth are happening because we're being guided. The whole human family is being guided into, I think, perhaps the next step in our evolution of life on the earth, because I do not think that humans are in control of anything. I don't think we have that kind of control. I think somebody else is far, far superior to us is guiding us and leading us into the decisions that we make.
Now, do you believe that there's going to be a revelation of some type? Are we going to see them? Because I just watched a very good movie with John Goodman called Captive State on Netflix. And in that movie, the aliens managed to conquer the world without ever showing their faces.
Yeah, I think that's possible. I think that's probably actually what's happening. They can conquer the whole world without showing their faces, without showing us anything of themselves, because they're far superior to our intellect and they have control over our thinking and our minds. So I always consider God like a big Wi-Fi apparatus. Wi-Fi in that it connects to all computers, and that's what Wi-Fi does. It can control all the computers that it's connected to. Well, our brains are like a computer, and I think God is like a Wi-Fi. I don't know what God is, but it's not on television and it's not on Sunday mornings in any church. There's some kind of a outside intelligence that is guiding our destiny. I don't know who it is or where they've come from, but I am sure that they look like humans
Now,
and that you could be living next to one and not even know it.
right, exactly. That's kind of what I've been leaning towards. It makes more sense of this stealth takeover that may have happened, it may already have happened. I've been thinking about how the Roswell crash happened in Corona Field.
Yes.
Well, that kind of suggests some kind of plan that was at least that old. Now,
Yep. That's what I think.
so we just had the 75th anniversary of Hiroshima, and the 75th anniversary of the flu vaccine is also this year. So here's a very interesting correlation: is nukes, pandemics. These are like world-destroying things that bring the world to their knees. And then we had these two big ones 75 years ago. These two big dates, these two anniversaries.
Yep.
Anniversaries, to me, seem to be indicators that we're being guided. What do you think?
Yep. That's what I think. I think that's exactly correct. We are being guided by somebody or someone who are not of this world that we live in. They're far superior to us. We cannot conquer them or deal with them because they are so far superior to us. So that's why, that's what I think.
Well, I mean, the more I look at these interesting coincidences and instances of predictive programming and this
Yeah,
obvious effort to communicate in a veiled language, I think
yeah,
there's got to be some type of, if not higher intelligence, some sophisticated diabolical intellect here at work.
yeah, I think so. There's no doubt in my mind about that. That's exactly what I think.
Okay, now I have a lot of people who ask about, like, well, why do they do it? What's with the symbols beyond just language and code? Because so much of it seems to have occult or magical trappings. What are your thoughts on
Yes.
magic being used in the media?
Well, that's exactly what it is. It's an extremely high form of legitimate de jure magic. And it's been said by others that a superior intellect, whatever they do, will seem to us to be magical, just as the things that we do to other inferior races or other races that have never come to know about us, the things that we could do with television and lasers will seem like magic to other people who do not know us. And so I think that magic is being performed on us as actually, in fact, a higher form of technology that's known to others. Because remember, anybody coming here from other places could be thousands and thousands of years into our future. They could have already gained knowledge that we don't even begin to know about. And so we call it magic. We look at it as magical. It's not magical, it's just a higher intelligence using technology that we don't understand.
Interesting, interesting. Because, you know, magic is one of these things that, one of these topics that we're taught to just ignore, deride. But I point out there's two types of magic: the stage magic, and that I would include propaganda in that, when you're just tricking
Yeah,
people.
well,
But then there's
that's
this.
true.
Then there's this deeper level that you're describing.
Well, what you're first talking about when you hear the word magic is sleight of hand. Magicians who have cleverly been able to deceive you and you think it's magic. No, it's just a very clever trick of hand, sleight of hand. But when I'm talking about magic, I mean something that is far superior to anything that we know in our technology. That's what I'm talking about, something that's really serious.
Okay, I was looking at Star Wars very closely because there's all kinds of occult symbolism there, and that's such an
Oh,
it's
yes.
so iconic. But one of the things I was looking at Jesuits and Jedi, and these interesting correlations, and you have this thing called the Force.
Yep.
Now, did you meet George Lucas, or did you? I think you had a. I saw a picture, I believe. Um,
Yeah, I met with him. I sat and talked with him. I had lunch with him actually at Disneyland. I was invited to a party at Disneyland. I went there and I ended up in the company of Michael Eisner, the president of Disney at the time, and George Lucas. And we sat and had lunch together and I talked with both of them.
Interesting, because both of them, both of these individuals, well, between the two of them, one of them has to have some kind of pipeline to this arcane knowledge that they're encoding into
Oh, there's no
all their.
doubt about that. There's no doubt about it. I think it's Michael Eisner because ABC is bought and paid for by Disney. Disney owns ABC. Well, at the time, Michael Eisner was the president and chairman of the board of Disney at the time I met him. And today, Disney is promoting all sorts of un-American thinking, all sorts of communist philosophy, communist, words and terms and symbols. I've given a lecture on that in Laughlin, Nevada a few months ago about how far gone Disney and ABC have really gone to subvert our country. And it's an incredible story when you finally see it. But you have to see it, not hear about it. You have to actually view it with your eyes and see it, and then you will understand what I'm talking about, how far gone we really are with ABC, NBC, and CBS, but especially ABC now. And Disney. Disney is totally corrupt beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Well,
The things that they're talking about, the things they show us, and their things that they are showing us are absolutely incredible in their movies. If you understand the technology and the words and the terms of world communism, you will see it everywhere in Disney films.
oh yes,
All of it.
yes. I mean, I can sit down, literally watch anything Disney or Pixar, and I see the communist subtext just screaming at me.
Yeah,
And it's not
yeah,
even a secret that the Greta Thunberg environmental communist character, that she's actually been written into Disney's Frozen as the main character. So the children are
yeah,
actually being given propaganda under the guise of entertainment. And you bring up Disney, which is very interesting as a whole topic, the company, but also the man, and Disney's connection to von Braun and the
yeah.
space
The
program,
Von
very
Braun,
beginning. Yep.
right? and Disney's connections to von Braun and to the Masonic Order. Very, very interesting connections behind the scene. Even at Disneyland in Los Angeles, there is a restaurant that nobody can go to except 33rd degree Masons and 32nd degree Masons. And it's called Club 33. And it's a part of Pirates of the Caribbean. And the reason he made it part of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, that restaurant, is because the Pirates of the Caribbean are the basis for the Federal Reserve and the Internal Revenue. Because the Federal Reserve and the Internal Revenue, why is it called Internal Revenue? It's because it's a very an integral part of the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve, when it was first founded, was originally have its headquarters in Puerto Rico in the South, in the Atlantic. Puerto Rico was the home office for the Federal Reserve. Why? Because of Pirates of the Caribbean. The symbol for the pirates many years ago was a black flag with a skull and a crossbone. That was a symbol for pirates. Today it is a symbol for poison on pills and things that we have around us. If you see a skull and crossbones, you immediately think of poison. Well, that's exactly what it was. It was a very poisonous organization in the Caribbean, Pirates of the Caribbean. And that's why today there's a ride in Disneyland in Los Angeles called Pirates of the Caribbean.
Templars.
And,
Templars,
and
right? It all connects to Templars and the Skull and Bone Society then, correct?
That's right. That's exactly correct.
Okay,
and
so
that brings up a whole different subject you could talk about for the next few hours about why does the Bible have Jesus saying, Jesus says in the scriptures, upon this rock I shall build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Upon this rock I shall build my church. Well, the Vatican says that was Peter. No, that wasn't Peter. Peter in Greek was Petros, Petros. But if you look in the encyclopedia of the Bible and the dictionaries of the Bible, upon this rock, the word rock is Petra, 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 not Peter, upon this rock. And that's what Petra is. It's a very big temple in the country of Jordan. And this is where Indiana Jones and Sean Connery finally end up with George Lucas's movie, Indiana Jones and the not Raiders of the Lost Ark, but Indiana Jones and the search for the Holy Grail.
Right. The Holy Grail. Now, this is all really intriguing stuff because, again, that was a Templar thing, a Templar,
Yep.
Their Grail quest. And,
That's right.
And, of course, that's a reference to the Last Supper and, of course, eternal life, which, again,
Right.
that's one of those things, too. So people ask, what's the end game here? And it seems like there's this promise of transhumanism, a lot of utopianism. What do you think the end game is like for the elite who are on the inside of this? And then how does that differ from what the rest of us are going to experience?
You know, that's a very difficult question because I know that they probably themselves do not have any choice. They're following something they must do. They are forced to do it. And that's why they're doing what they're doing, is because they have to follow their orders. And the question to ask is who is issuing the orders over our masters who are leading us into this new world order, massive conspiracy to take away human freedom and liberty and justice and intelligence. Who is behind this, really? It's not human because humans are involved in it. So I think it's probably extraterrestrial or otherworldly, I would say off-world intelligence. But who actually is the boss of this whole operation, and where is it going to take us? I know it's taking us somewhere right now. We're on our way. You know, when the Communist Party was founded back in the 1920s, and the Soviet Union was founded, V.I. Lenin, I think it was V.I. Lenin who said that the Russian people have to accept world communism. They have to get in line and be a part of it for it to work. And he called the Russian people useful idiots because they were idiots because they didn't realize they were being lulled into world communism. But they woke up a little bit later to find out they're living in a country no longer called Russia, but it's the Soviet Union, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. That's why we have social networks today. All the social networks that we have, we're talking about socialism, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And that's what we are doing right now in America. We're becoming ready and getting ready to go into a United Socialist Republic, USSR, United
Okay,
States
so
Socialist Republic.
you bring up this phrase "useful idiots," and it's interesting because today on Twitter I saw a video. It's viral where a woman in a grocery store is kind of belligerent, yelling, "I'm not going to comply with this communist takeover," and she refuses the mask. So the internet is mocking her, saying, "What does this have to do with communism?" And I was, and I'm like, you might as well write "useful idiot" on the mask if you
You
believe
might as
what they
well.
say it's
Yeah.
for.
Yep. That's incredible. What does this have to do with communism? The whole operation going on and around the world right now is world communism. And that's what I gave a lecture on in Laughlin, Nevada a couple of months ago. If you see that lecture, and it's on the web right now, me speaking to an audience in Laughlin, Nevada, which is about 50 miles south of Las Vegas, I gave a lecture in which I explained the whole thing, and it's all right there. You can see that Obama and Hillary Clinton were using the same identical words as the World Communist Party in the Soviet Union, and that Hillary Clinton wants to bring the United States under a world communist control, and that she is expecting that she'll be accepted into the elites of the Communist Party. She has no idea that's not what the communists have in mind. They have in mind destroying this country, and they're doing a beautiful job of it right now by telling everybody to wear a mask, stay home, stay away from each other by 6 feet, and don't get close to each other and stay home with your mask, and we hope you starve to death. We hope you starve. And that's what's happening because the business of America is business. And when you shut down business in America, you're shutting down business on the earth. And then we have fed and clothed and financed practically everybody on the planet. Well, now it's now coming back to us that we don't have the money to even finance ourselves. All of this has been well planned by the powers that be behind the world scene.
Yeah, you mentioned
So,
Clinton, and I remember just a few years ago, every time I see Hillary Clinton, she's wearing a Mao Zedong uniform, a communist
yeah,
wardrobe, even.
that's right. That's right. She is purely communist. When she was running for president, her theme for her presidency is the dawn of a new day.
Wow. Well, okay.
Anybody who knows anything about that can go back to the Soviet Union and look at the Soviet Union coat of arms, and it's called the dawn of a new day. And here Hillary Clinton is talking about the dawn of a new day. She knows what that means. It means Marxist-Leninist Soviet communism for the whole earth. And that's what she's working for, the downfall of America and the destruction of the United States in lieu of a new world order, the Novus Ordo Seclorum on the back of the dollar bill. That's a very interesting story when you start getting into the symbols on the dollar bill.
Well, Jordan, we have a number of people in the chat. Someone here says, "Who is this guy?" Very interesting. Others, longtime listeners of yours. And so you've mentioned a couple of lectures here. One where you talk about Disney and ABC. Another one that you gave in Nevada recently. Where should I direct them so that they can hear these lectures and catch up on some of your material?
Well, there's a lecture on television, and I don't know where you'll find it except on YouTube, and it's Jordan Maxwell's lecture at the I think it's called the UFO. I think I have a copy of it right here. Hold on. I think I've got a copy of it.
What I can do also, Jordan, is we have this 24-hour stream going, and we can syndicate it and promote it, and then we'll have a lot of people watching it live, and we can all kind of listen in and see what kind of puzzle pieces you bring out with these different lectures.
Yeah. I make it very, very obvious, overwhelming obvious, with pictures from Disney, articles written by Disney. It's an incredible display of communism promoted by Disney and ABC. But most people have no idea in the world what I'm talking about. If you go on TV, if you go on YouTube, it says Jordan Maxwell, Order Out of Chaos is the name that I'm reading on YouTube. It says Jordan Maxwell, Order Out of Chaos. It's a UFO mega, MEGA, UFO mega conference. And I am lecturing for about an hour and a half on the subject of the takeover of the world and the useful idiots that are now wearing their masks and doing whatever they're told to do. We're no longer America, the land of the free and home of the brave. We're not free or brave. We're just slaves. We're doing what we're told. They tell you to wear a mask, so we wear a mask. Stay home, so we stay home. And keep your mouth shut and don't think and don't talk about anything important. So we don't think about anything important and we don't talk about anything important. Well, so therefore we are doing what we're told to do.
What I like to do, I like to take these lectures. I want to get these lectures of yours and definitely put them here in front of this audience in particular.
Okay.
Because this is.
Remember the name on the website says Jordan Maxwell. Order Out of Chaos. You might want to go to that. I could send you the link right now because I'm looking at it.
Send me the link here in Skype, Jordan, and what I'll do is I'm going to play that after this live stream. So the same people who are listening now will check it out together, hang out in the chat. And I kind of caught you off guard here. I've had you on for 30 minutes. I didn't want to take up all of your day, but we need to do this regularly, and I think that a lot of my listeners will definitely appreciate some of your lectures here, especially the ones.
I think that would be a great idea because you have no idea in the world what I could tell you about the world we live in. I could tell you things that you will not believe, and when you go to my YouTube, Jordan Maxwell, Order Out of Chaos, and watch the presentation for about an hour and a half, whatever it is, almost 2 hours. Everything is in there. All of the symbols, words, and terms, it's all there, showing that ABC and Disney are promoting world communism in your face everywhere. And then you will see all the social networks are all connected behind the scenes that you didn't know. And all the social networks are exactly that. They're called social networks because they're socialists. And that's what USSR for Russia was, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. That's what we have become, the USSR, United States Socialist Republic. and we're going totally communistic and socialist. And that's why we are seeing all of these things happening to our country right now. It's an extraordinary story, and I would love for you to watch on the video on the tube. It's called Jordan Maxwell, Order Out of Chaos.
Okay, I got a link here. So I'm going to play that after this, Jordan. We're going to be in touch again, and we're definitely going to do this on a routine. A lot of the listeners here like your work. A lot of people want to hear more. And of course, we can take calls and everything when we have time to schedule bigger blocks of time.
Be delighted to do it. But the problem is I've had a stroke and a heart attack, and I'm 80 years old, and I do not believe I will reach my birthday in December. I have very big doubts that I'll be able to reach my birthday because I'm very sick, and I've given my life for 60 years. I've given my life to this subject. I have forgot more about this subject than most people who are educated know. And go to my video on YouTube and watch it. Jordan Maxwell, Order Out of Chaos. Watch the whole video and you will see exactly what I'm talking about. It's all there. But keep in mind that I was very sick when I was doing the presentation. Sometimes I will make mistakes, sometimes I'll stumble in my words, but it's because of my age and because of my sickness. But I'm not so sick that I don't know what's going on. I've been watching this coming for 60 years. I've been talking about it. So now I've got to a point where I'm too old and sick to do much of anything but just tell people the truth.
Well,
that's what I want to do.
I reached out to you after they declared the pandemic because I saw the symbolism. And I'm like, if anybody knows what's going on, if anybody's been vindicated, it's Jordan. And so, you've been a regular here, and we've been talking, just kind of covering things as they unfold. So, you're welcome, as always, to call in live and cover these things. And we're definitely going to promote a lot of your great lectures and material. And we'll be putting it into circulation here on the live streams. And
thank you.
Yeah, anytime you have time and you want to talk, we've got so much to talk about. Money, the symbols of the dollar bill.
Oh, do we ever?
Religion,
do we ever?
Everything.
All kinds of organized crime that's operating right in front of you. You didn't even see it, had no knowledge of it. And it's organized crime right in front of you. And I could show you and tell you things that you will not believe about the world you live in. I was there and I saw it with my own eyes. Have you got the video I was talking about, my lecture? Have you seen it?
I think that might have been one of the first ones that I've seen of yours, but that was years ago. And one of the things I would recommend everyone do is and I have it here, they rewatch it because so much has happened in the meantime. And so,
well, yeah, but the one that you need to see is called UFO Mega, MEGA, UFO Mega Conference. And the video is entitled, I can see, it says Jordan Maxwell, Order Out of the Chaos.
Found it. Okay, got it. Got it here.
So let everybody watch it while it's still up, because somebody put it up on the web, and probably not the people who filmed it originally, but somebody put it on the web, and they'll be taking it down soon if they get a strike against them. So you might want to watch it now as quick as possible, because I'm telling you, the material in there you will find extremely fascinating and interesting, all the stuff that's going on around the world today and what it actually means. And I tell you, I'm really happy to be with you on the show. You can call me anytime. Be a delight to talk with you.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you for joining us and keeping us abreast of everything as this thing unfolds and sharing your insights. Definitely, we appreciate it. I have it locked and loaded here from the UFO Mega Conference, so I'll play it right after. And we'll definitely be in touch. Phones are open all the time, so definitely call in, and I'll make sure that everyone here has a link to your site. Jordan Maxwell
Tell everybody to watch it. Watch this video I did, because everything is in there. But watch it to the very end, because I add things in there that nobody's ever heard before. nobody's ever seen before.
Excellent.
And I would love to be able to talk with you later about theology and government and the military. There's so much for people that need to know. And again, thank you for calling me.
Yeah, Jordan, take it easy. Thank you for calling. Appreciate your time.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, everyone. Jordan Maxwell dropped in for just about just under 34 minutes, and as he said, he's had a few health emergencies, and luckily, though, last time he just hurt himself. He didn't lose his focus, and he's very much keeping up with everything day to day. And if anybody's been vindicated, it's him. And until I don't know, a politician full on shapeshifts into reptilian in front of everybody, until that happens, Jordan Maxwell's the most vindicated conspiracy theorist. All right, so what I'm going to do now, because we have something else to play, and I wanted to catch him on the live stream. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to terminate this stream, but it's not going to end. I'm just going to take off and we're going to play this video. Divine Matrix says he should really talk about the stuff he can't talk about, but I understand, don't want the information lost. Yeah, last time I talked to him, I kind of brought up a few things, and there are some areas where he's pretty insistent that it might be a bad idea for him to say too much. I don't know. I mean, I haven't dined at Club 33 with the head of Disney. Okay, so let me go ahead and hit play. So those of you on YouTube, you want to jump on to the DLive bandwagon now before I terminate it. And I'll be back. This is a 24-hour stream, but we will be back later to take phone calls.
This is really weak. Love you.